So here is the state of World War III, and it's not going well. These are the countries that are kind of more or less involved in fighting in some shape or fashion. We got the proxy war going on in Ukraine. We got the proxy war happening over in Israel, between Israel and Palestine. We got the Yemen conflict. A lot of this is already kind of coming to a head. We have Taiwan and China just staring each other down right now. And China is actively exerting its influence out across the South China Sea. There are actual combat going on where Chinese ships are ramming Filipino vessels, and there are ships not using missiles or machine guns at this point, but they are ramming each other. There is actual combat, actual conflict happening in the world right now. There's a lot of people saying, when will World War III kick off? Well, right now, World War III is happening, and we're not doing well. We're not winning. And I'm going to walk you through. The problem is these countries that are fighting the West, fighting the United States, Canada, European Union, they're not fighting the way we want them to fight. We want them to come right at us. We want them not to use nukes. And then we want them to send their ships over at us. We want them to line up their troops out in the open and attack us directly so that we can fight back to them. And they're not doing that. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. That's dumb. And so what Russia has done is invaded Ukraine, and they've set up the rules in such a way that Western countries aren't allowed to send troops to Ukraine. We are playing by the rules that are dictated by Russia here. And so this conflict here is not a conflict of the United States' choosing, so much to speak, though. There is conversation about who lined that all up. Very much the NATO and the United States is very excited and very happy for the war in Ukraine. Not the people of those countries, mind you, but the politicians. They're still exerting considerable force upon Zelensky not to surrender, not to sign a peace treaty. They don't want a peace treaty because this is grinding Russia down. And NATO people have been saying this ever since the war began. Just go look it up, right? You don't have to believe me, but you do have to do your own homework. And so the United States wanted this, and Russia decided that they could frame this in a way that would actually benefit them. I know a lot of the NATO people are like, yes, we got him. We pulled him into the trap. We're going to do to him here what we did to the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, what the Soviet Union did to the United States in Vietnam, and what some of the other countries did to the United States in Afghanistan as well. But this is not going exactly as planned for the European and the American states, right? And then we have this conflict down here. So we have the whole Middle East, Hamas, Palestinians, and Houthi situation here with Iran doing stuff too, right? And this isn't going according to plan either. Israel is knocking heads and taking names in Gaza and also in the West Bank now. Whereas we're waiting to see Lebanon is still waiting and still hanging on there. Hezbollah up there is not directly fully engaged. They're shooting rockets, and they're fighting a little bit with Israel, but they're not full-scale war. Yemen down here is basically declaring full-scale war on any ships going past them, which is a big deal. So basically, we have the Axis powers here that are clear at this time. These are the countries that have basically declared that they are in alliance for World War III. China, Russia, Iran, Yemen. But at this time, it still kind of seems to be fractured. And that's the thing that we need to understand is that, and North Korea, of course, is that all of these conflicts seem independent, but when you look at them a little more closely, they're not independent at all. These are actually being pushed forward with an agenda, with a plan, And the plan here is we got all these gray states. Which of these countries can we flip over to our side? And we're seeing this across Africa, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Algeria. These countries have basically signed up for the Axis powers recently. Niger just recently had a coup, and they've basically been ousting American and French forces from the country. They have decided that they are not on board with the Western powers at all. And then you have the BRICS countries, which is an economic version of this. And that's what you need to see here, is that this is a hybrid war that is taking place across the entire world right now. And they're not lining up their ships so that the United States can bomb them. They're not lining up their tanks so that the United States can come in and do airstrikes. What they're doing is they're playing this hybrid warfare model. They're invading Europe with millions of migrants, Muslim migrants mostly. And then over in the United States, millions and millions of people are coming up into the United States too. And this is part of it. And in that flux heading into the United States, we have hundreds of thousands of Chinese coming across the border. And you say, well, what country are the Chinese coming from? Yeah, they're coming from China. They're coming from China. They're flying down South America, and then they're coming across the borders into the United States, and then trying to claim asylum inside the United States. We have hundreds of thousands of Chinese coming across the southern border illegally and then claiming asylum. And should we be concerned about that? I'd say like 95% of them, at least, we don't need to be concerned about them. They genuinely don't like China, and they are coming over to the United States for a better life. But how many of them have families still back in China? And China can use that as leverage on them. How many of them are actively working for the Chinese Communist Party and infiltrating the United States for purposes that are nefarious? I don't know the answer to that question. And, the scary thing is the United States government doesn't know either. China has made it all but impossible for the United States to do espionage against China because they've kicked all the foreigners out. And every single, anyone who has any contact with U.S. diplomats in China now are being put under under intense scrutiny to see if they are they're U.S. agents now. So the United States CIA and other intelligence agencies are having a super hard time getting intelligence, getting human intelligence from inside China. And yet here we are with hundreds of thousands of people coming across our southern border into the United States who are like born in China. And they're going into work at all sorts of factories, all sorts of plants. They are going and getting into all sorts of jobs and all over the United States. They have access to U.S. infrastructure. There is a tremendous amount of people inside the United States that have the potential for not being loyal to the United States. It's dangerous. Same thing for Europe. Many, many, many people who are undocumented and unregistered are in Europe as well, and nobody knows who they are, why they're there. So we have this conflict going on all over the place. We have the Panama Canal belongs to the Chinese now. We've gave it to the Panamanians, and they immediately turned around and sold it to the Chinese. It's operating at 50% capacity. Now, I'm not saying that the Chinese designed the drought just to hinder U.S. and world shipping, but the fact that the Panama Canal is running at 50% capacity, and then you have this, which the Axis powers definitely control. Iran is moving weapon systems into Yemen so they can fire them at ships all over the place, basically making the Suez Canal all but defunct. This is war. They are going around seizing objectives. They are looking at what do we need to capture. And this is I talked about this last week or a week before. Algeria is a big one. Nobody's talking about Algeria. Algeria can shut down the Strait of Gibraltar here. They have missile batteries, Russian missile batteries, Chinese missile batteries actually being deployed all across the northern coast of Algeria that are capable of firing across and hitting any ships in this region. They don't have control of Morocco. They don't have control of Spain directly, but Algeria allows them to shut down all shipping through this area. That's a big deal. So when you look around the world, we got some countries that are probably going to pop into the Axis powers relatively quickly. I mean, it all depends on how the conflict is framed. And they understand this. If they can make the United States and European allies look like belligerents, make us look like the bad guys, which is really not that hard to do these days, then a bunch of these countries are going to side with Axis powers. China has been sidling up with Afghanistan, getting the Talibs on their side. Afghanistan doesn't really get along with Iran because Sunni Shia kind of thing there, but they both don't like Israel, and that's what this is being framed as. A lot of the Muslim world right now is finding it hard to be anti-Iran because Iran's going out there and attacking Israel. Iraq is all but in their camp. Iraq is launching weapons, missiles at U.S. bases in Iraq. Syria, of course, is in the Axis camp right there. They're already fighting. Lebanon is just kind of hanging on. They're not siding with either side, but when push comes to shove, they're going to go with the Axis powers. I'm just using the word Axis because it makes it a little easier to say. And we got the Azerbaijan, Armenia conflict in there. And that's a complicated thing, but basically that's kind of just putting pressure on Turkey and getting Russian support in there. Russia's kind of on both sides of that, so it's kind of, like I said, complicated. Belarus, of course, is on the Axis side of things. When we come down to it, there's a little country down here called Tajikistan. Now, most people don't realize that the largest foreign Russian military base in the world is actually in Tajikistan, in the capital of Tajikistan. Why? Because they actively recruit Tajik soldiers. So basically, they take people off the street. They sign up with the Russian army. Yep. Tajik citizens sign up with the Russian army. And then after a few years of service, they get their Russian citizenship. And since Tajikistan is extremely poor, this is a pretty good deal for a lot of people. And so there are whole units inside the Russian army that are actually Tajik. They are, they're not totally on board with the Axis powers, but they're playing both sides of things, and they definitely benefit a lot more from their alliance with Russia. And then when you start looking at these other states here, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, these states are more historically in line with Russia from the Soviet Union and such. Now, they don't really super like the whole background of that, and they don't really have as much to offer. But Kazakhstan is, we could just kind of throw them in the camp there too, because when it comes to allying themselves economically, they definitely ally themselves with Russia on that as well. So as we're kind of backing up out the world, does it look like we're winning? Because if it does, you might need some new glasses. But there is some big players that we're still seeing which side of things they're going to land on. India is the big kahuna, right? Which side is India going to land on? And at first it seems like, well, India is going to side with the United States because they don't like China and they have some border skirmishes here. But they're very cozy with Russia. Most of their weapon systems are purchased from Russia. Are they flying American fighter jets? No, they're not. They're flying Russian jets. They're flying European jets. They're not flying U.S. jets. Now, Pakistan seems like it's a natural ally with Russia and China and all that. China is building a road going down Pakistan to get to their ports. They're actually building a military base, a naval base outside Pakistan, on the Pakistani southern coast. They have access to those ports. And so basically, Pakistan looks like a lock, but they do have historical ties to the United States. So they are flying U.S. fighter jets. The United States is giving lots of money to fund the Pakistani military. And Pakistan, of course, has nukes. India has nukes. So historically, the United States has been on Pakistan's side, and Russia's been on the side of India. But that's kind of gotten blurry. So whose side are these guys going to fall on? It's potential that they could both fall on the side of the Axis powers. It's possible. China is making a big play for Pakistan. Now, Pakistan got bombed by Iran just this past week, and then Pakistan shot back at Iran, and they're very upset at each other. But they don't historically hate each other super deeply. They don't like each other, though. It's a Sunni Shia thing there as well. Pakistan kind of gets along better with the Taliban in Afghanistan, but still they don't like them either. Nobody likes anybody, really. So the question is in World War III, which side of these countries going to come down on? And it's really going to be all about the framing. So when we look at Thailand, when we look at India, Pakistan, which way are these countries going to land? And then we look at countries like Saudi Arabia, very historically strong U.S. ally, not so strong anymore. They're kind of leaning more and more towards Iran and seeing Iran's perspective of things. So that's a problem. Libya, well, they don't really have a side. They're just basically just trying to pick up the pieces. They're still fighting their own civil war. Neither side is really interested in what's going on outside the world. They're just doing them. Turkey, huge military force. Which way is Turkey going to go? That's a question that a lot of this conflict is going on right now. Russia really wants Turkey on their side. If they can get Turkey on their side, the Bosphorus Strait here, which is absolutely crucial to the Russian country, because that's where their naval bases are. They need to use those. They need to get through the Bosphorus Strait so they can get out into the Mediterranean. If Turkey, a NATO member, sides with the United States and the rest of NATO, that's going to be a very big problem for Russia. Turkey is a big military, and they have a very strategic location there too. So that's going to be a big problem for Russia. And that's why a lot of this is maneuvering in order to get Turkey. That's why the whole Israel framing thing. Turkey is very predominantly Muslim, and they do not like Israel. They very much side on the side of the Palestinians there and Hamas and all that. South Africa probably will side with the Axis powers. Once again, it's a very strategic location. If you can't get through here, then you have to go around here, right? So that's a problem for the world. And then when we get to South America, we got countries, BRICS. What's the B in BRICS? Brazil. Where's Brazil going to come down on this? Argentina was siding up with the Axis powers until they just had their most recent election, and a very pro-Trump, very pro-West, very anti-globalist took power in Argentina, and he's trying to swing things back towards the United States. So that looks like he's moving Argentina back towards the blue column. But that would be devastating if Argentina were to he formally rejected joining the BRICS, which they had been approved for. So Brazil, which side are they going to land on? Argentina, are they going to really continue coming back over to the side? And then China, of course, is maneuvering out here against Taiwan. South Korea is a very loyal U.S. ally there. They should be blue. South Korea should be blue. North Korea is red, of course. Mongolia is just, they don't take sides. They're just kind of out there chilling with their yaks on the on the plains and such like that. They're not really, New Zealand should really be blue as well. What about Indonesia? Indonesia is an interesting question there too. Historically, kind of aligned with the West, but who's to say? Who's to say? It all depends on how it gets framed. Singapore should be blue because it's they're a historical U.S. ally, and U.S. I'm not sure if U.S. has troops based in Singapore. They very well may. So that's kind of how the world's shaping up right now. Everyone's posturing in order to try to win people onto their team for World War III. And World War III is already well underway. There's a lot of economic things happening. There's a lot of shipping things happening, a lot of shaping the world right now. This is unfolding. And as you can see, it's not looking good. Russia and China are actively flipping as many states across Africa as they can, and they're actively working trying to flip countries in South America. What happens next? Well, we'll just throw a couple things at you. Chinese shipping production. That blue, that's how many ships China is producing by tons. The little orange is how many ships Japan is building. South Korea is in gray, how many ships they're producing. And then the little yellow is the rest of the world. It's the capacity that China is building is massive. They are building tons and tons and tons of ships, and many of them military ships. They have 232 times the capacity that the U.S. has for shipbuilding. They have 13 shipyards, and one of their shipyards has more capacity than all U.S. shipyards combined. Here's another interesting graph here. This is how many cars the United States produces, continuing to decline. This is how many cars China is producing. Now, how hard is it to change a car manufacturing plant and retrain car workers, car manufacturers into tank manufacturers and armored vehicles and military vehicles? Not that hard. That is one of the best ways to ramp up your production of military vehicles, is to increase your capacity to build cars. And they are building cars for all sorts of people around the world. Back in the early 2010s, I started seeing Chinese vehicles all over the place in Central Asia. They are selling lots and lots of vehicles, not to the United States, but to everybody else. Russia has been ramping up its military production as well. We have drone manufacturer going off the charts. China, Iran, Russia, all manufacturing a lot of drones. We have Russia manufacturing tons and tons of artillery shells. They're ramping up production to 2 million artillery shells per year, whereas the United States is currently at capacity of 336,000, not million, 336,000 shells per year. You are looking at basically 7 times the ammo and artillery production as the United States. Over 2 times the capacity of producing artillery shells in Russia versus the rest of the world. Not rest of the world, rest of the West, like NATO and United States allies and such. That's massive. China and Russia are ramping up their production, manufacturing capabilities, while the United States is being left in the dust. This war is not being fought as we would like it to be. It's being fought according to their terms, and we don't like it. We're losing. That's what I got for you guys. If you want to check out another video from the channel, there's one right up on the screen right there. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.